72% of our planet is covered by water. 97% of the water on our planet is in our ocean. Every second breath you take is a direct result of our connection to the ocean. We are creatures of the ocean. If you cry, your tears are salty. If you cut yourself and you taste your blood, it's salty. We are creatures of the ocean. We crawled out of the ocean. We absolutely, 100% categorically need the ocean to survive on this planet, yet we seem to have this disconnect that is driving our oceans to the point of being broken. And there was an article that came out the other day it was titled, "The Oceans Are Broken." And this is kind of like a really, I think, kind of common title whenever I see oceans. It's like whenever you see climate change debate is somewhere in the paragraph or right behind it. And whenever you see ocean, you see the word broken. So it fascinates me why we aren't fixing it, because we have all the capacity to fix it. Everything that goes on in the ocean is a direct result of human consumption of our everyday products and services. We use it for trade. 90% of our trade goes by the ocean. 80% of the pollution that's in the ocean comes from land. It comes from us. The remaining 20% comes from that 90% that's shifting our trade around the world and can't be bothered to unpack their bags at sea. You know, their trash, they throw it overboard, or they get into a storm and they lose their cargo, or it's coming from pollution that's obviously coming from our atmosphere. I don't know if everyone can see me on which side I come. So what is it about it? The first thing I think when I think about framing anything, any sort of system within nature, and I touched upon it yesterday, is our actual relationship to nature. We've created this false dichotomy that there's nature on one side and we're on the other side, and somehow we're out of the food chain, which is kind of awesome, because it'd be, you know, to quote Louis C.K., it'd be a bummer if you're walking to work every day and you have to worry about something eating you. We're the only creature that doesn't end its life usually going, ah, get off my neck. You know, we have the fortunate nature, you know, we die because, oh, our heart gives up, you know, not because our throat's being eaten by another animal, unless you're really unlucky and you are the one of 12 people. Only 12 people get eaten by sharks every year, or there's a fatality. 12 people, yet we kill anywhere between 50 and 100 million sharks, the majority of which we use just for their fins. So our relationship to nature and our brain model is slightly outdated, hasn't caught up. We're more scared of the ocean than we are of what's going on to the ocean. How many people here are actually, admittedly, a bit scared of the ocean? I think we all are, right? I went for a swim there, and then when my brother was swimming the other day, and then just before he told me about these sea snakes, and then he's like, "What's that behind you?" I'm like, "Oh shit!" And, you know, and I'm like, you know, and then I get freaked out, and then I'm like swimming as fast as I can, pretending to be really cool, like, "Yeah, we should get back. I've got to go and do this talk," you know. But really, I'm shitting myself because of, you know, I don't know what's beneath me. And this is one of the major problems of the ocean, is that the ocean is, obviously, as we look at it, just this sort of blue blanket. But beneath it is the most fascinating, unbelievable amount of systems. The majority, in fact, the overall majority of species on our planet live beneath our oceans. We have mountain ranges on our oceans that run for 50,000 kilometers, 30,000 odd miles, all the way around. That's like taking every major mountain range, like the Himalayas and the Alps and every other mountain range in the Andes, and putting them all together. We actually went to the moon 4 years before we actually got down to the bottom of our ocean. We know more about Mars than we do about the floor of our ocean, which is bizarre considering it covers so much. So the question keeps on coming up. What do we do about it? How do we fix what is broken if we are so devoid of any emotional context? If the ocean was just rebranded and was a little cuddlier. I always find it fascinating. There's a society called the Society for the Prevention of Ugly Animals, right? And they just had a really interesting award where I think the blobfish won the ugliest animal. This sort of ugly looking thing that no one gives a shit about because it's not a white cute little polar bear or a panda bear. And this is the problem we face with the ocean, because we have this emotional resonance with things that we can see, touch, taste, and feel, and look cute and cuddly. But yet the ocean, which is actually far more diverse, far more, I guess, important to living on this planet, is full of what we call, you know, the rainforest of the ocean. If a swordfish that can travel, or a marlin that can travel 120 kilometers an hour under the water and sustain that, was actually relabeled as the cheetah of the ocean, we'd probably think about it slightly differently. And the ocean is full of these incredible creatures that are so interdependent. As I said, the life layer of our ocean, which is where the light penetrates, which is where you'll be snorkeling till the day, if you swallow just a tiny bit of seawater, 1 tablespoon of seawater, you're filling your mouth with literally tens of millions of different forms of bacteria, tens of millions of viruses. Don't worry, you won't die, but things that could hold the key to understanding how to survive on this planet. Yet we totally ignore it because it's not emotional, we can't touch it and taste it, and we're scared of it. So how do I bring this back to the session? And I'm probably running out of time. I thought a little bit about the plastiki in a different context, not from the context of I built a boat out of plastic bottles and blah, 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 what did you eat, was it scary and all that, but really what did I learn from it? And what did it really stand for? And I put it down into these sort of 3 buckets today, this morning. And it's kind of a bit how I act, and I think these are things that we could all take away and use, not just necessarily in the context of the ocean. And those 3 buckets are basically do, think, and be. And I say do first, because I'm sorry to all the scientists in the room, but I'm bored of your research, you know? And I know it sounds a horrible thing to say, but we are paralyzed by research. We're drowning in reports, and we're not doing anything. So we need to actually flip it. It shouldn't be R&D. It should be D and R. Do, and then figure out how to convey it through research. But do it because, as Buckminster Fuller said, you find out what it is when you find out what it isn't. And you're not going to find out what it is sitting in a laboratory hypothesizing about the future of the ocean if you're not even going to get your feet wet. So to do, you need to collaborate, experiment, evaluate, and iterate. Those are the principles of doing. Collaborating, experimenting, evaluating, and iterating. I love iterating because it means that you can just keep on, when you're wrong, because when we grow up, our egos get in the way and we can't be wrong, you can keep on just iterating on your wrongness and hopefully find the right solution. Thinking, I put it down into 2 buckets, which is think across multiple disciplines and with multiple perspectives. Those 2 things were really important for the plastiki. We had a project full of artists, we had material scientists, sailors, biologists, everyone came together. And because the opening question was so insanely stupid, can we build a boat out of plastic bottles and sail across the Pacific? Everything else became this incredible petri dish of curiosity. There was no wrong answer. People could collaborate with different principles and different disciplines and different ideas. So a poet was telling us that we should write poetry on our sail because it would be good for the ocean. And then all of a sudden someone said, well, how do we write on the sail? Because it's made of a material that won't accept the writing unless it's using PVC. And then someone else said, well, why don't we make the sail out of a different material so we can write poetry onto the thing? And that started us out on a whole new different conversation where we ended up making the sail out of fully recycled plastic bottles. And it all started with a poet who wanted to visualize something really romantically. And the third, about being. These, I think, are, again, just as important as the other 2 categories, but be curious, because curiosity, I believe, is the greatest driver of change. I guess it's why we're all here. Be courageous, because if you're not courageous and you're not curious, and they go hand in hand, because it takes a lot of courage to be curious and ask questions and maybe be wrong and ask and try and find out what you don't know. But if you can be courageous, anything is possible. And be optimistic, which is what we obviously want to be here and come out with things, and be persistent. Don't give up. I've definitely become an optimistic pessimist. I used to be just an optimist, but at least I'm persistent with that. And I think that is where I will leave it, because I'm probably running out of time. There we go. Thank you.